Hey, you can unmute your phone. Okay, perfect. All right. So let me switch this view. Thank you so much for coming in. We got a couple of people that's in the room
Yes, we're
today.
good.
Okay,
We're good.
perfect. Perfect. I hear you. You guys look so beautiful. I love the earpiece shared between you two. Thank you so much
All
for
right.
joining today. I appreciate it. I know that it's going to be a little delay. If you're able to listen to me through the Zoom, that would be the best way. Because it's a delay. I'm going to let them catch up. So if you're able to listen to me through the Zoom window, that would be better.
Y'all can hear?
Because it's a delay. They're listening through Facebook.
Yeah. We're not hearing you through the Zoom.
You're not able.
Okay, I thought that was just me.
Oh, you can't hear me through the Zoom? Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
All righty. I think we're okay. Kenny, let me know if you can still hear me through Facebook. And I'm going to let everybody else, we're going to focus on the Zoom, you guys. So the first guests that are coming on are James and Myndee Washington. They're Pasco County educators. And I want to welcome you to Pasco Connect. Thank you so much for joining today. And tell us a little bit about what you have experienced as educators in Pasco County.
Well, thanks for having us on, and thanks for doing this. This is so important for our community to hear news directly from our community. As you said, we're both educators. We grew up in Pasco County, and we have two different perspectives because James is a public school teacher and I teach at a charter school, which is a public school of choice. We both start school again Monday. I think our biggest concern right now is that we both have elderly mothers who have health concerns. I have a sick sister-in-law. And Monday, we can't be around them anymore. We can't risk it because there are just not enough measures being taken in the schools to protect us from carrying the virus back home and around anybody that we come into contact with. So that's our biggest concern with school starting. And I know that, some parents need to go back to work. I know that we're in uncharted territory. For anybody listening, what I really want to say is that when you hear all the kids are going to be behind, stop for a moment and think, what are they going to be behind? They're not going to be behind because we're all in the same boat. Literally, the entire world is in the same boat. We've set this arbitrary benchmark that we say the kids have to hit. We're the ones who set that benchmark. Right. So take a breath. We're not going to be behind because when we're all back together, teachers are going to do what teachers do. We're going to meet the kids where they are.
Right.
We're going to teach them where they are, and we're going to move on. Don't listen to politicians who have never set foot in a classroom. Listen to the teachers. This is what we've dedicated our entire life to.
Right. Well, can I ask a question? Why do you think there is such an urgent push for the schools to reopen? And, I often hear politicians cite about kids that are being abused, and the effects of kids that are maybe in danger for other reasons for them being home. How realistic is that?
That's an absolute concern. I will say for my school, and we have two different perspectives. So James will tell you public school wise. The charter school, though, we assigned every single non-classroom employee a group of students, and their job was to call those homes every single week. And if they did not get a response from calling those homes, to find out why. And the whole purpose of that was to make sure that students were being cared for, were being fed, were being were just in a positive mental space, to find out if there was anything they needed. And I think that's the big missing block. The schools had since March to figure that part out. And that's, I think, the biggest reason people are pushing to go back to school, because the school districts did not do anything to figure that out.
And I want to go back to the premise of your question. I think the answer is political. There's this idea, and it's a myth, but there's this idea that we're going to return to what they call normal. Schools open up, people go back to work, and everything looks great. So those politicians that are up for election or are going to be up for elections, it's going to look good on their record that we haven't had this falling off. But I would flip that. If they're so concerned, as you put it in your question, of having kids who might be being abused, etc., then start putting the money into the schools for those things. Staff every school with a school psychologist, a school social worker. Don't split them between different schools where they have caseloads that they can't keep up with. Invest in resources outside the school. I know that we'll probably get into it later in the time where we talk Black Lives Matter. One of the big things defunding the police movement is the idea that we need to put the money back into those agencies, that
community centers,
that the cops are being overwhelmed as well, having to do those pieces. So part of it is in the school system. We're not getting the monies that we need. One of the things that they talked about in the school board meeting a couple of weeks ago was that we have a 6.4 shortfall with the millage rate. $6.4 million. So those are lost dollars that could go to fund these things. And I think that's the biggest concern.
So going into, these elections that are coming up on Tuesday, how important is it for the community to come out and vote for the superintendent? Like, how important is that role in what we're facing right now?
I think it's extremely important. I'm sorry to cut you off, Myndee. And I would also like to put the caveat that I think a lot of the down ballot races are important. We're going to focus on the superintendent races, but it's imperative that people look at county commissioners and
City
courthouse and judges. There are people in there that do not want to spend money in certain areas where we know that investment would go 2, 3, 4 times turnaround in our benefit as a community. So as far as the superintendent race, there are 3 candidates, and they all have their strengths and weaknesses, and hopefully we'll get into talking about those.
So we have 2 superintendent candidates who are on the ballot, which we have early voting open right now, but voting happens this Tuesday, the 18th. And that is current Superintendent Browning and Dr. Dave LaRoche. And the main reason we wanted to come on and talk today is because we have very strong feeling. We are the founders of a group called SAS, Safe Schools for All Students. And the reason that came about is we went to a school board meeting because we saw that there were going to be some people bussed in from the villages to speak against a school board policy on LGBTQ rights in the school. And so we went to support the superintendent's position, which is following best practices. And best practices is a big buzzword in education, meaning the things that have been studied, that have data and research backing them, that's the best thing for our students. And there's an organization in the county that bussed people in from Brandon, from Tampa, from the villages, a big busload of people from the villages to speak against that. The first time we went, it was rather shocking in that there were 5 of us that were supporting the board, and the rest of the people who, again, by and large, were not even from our community, were viciously attacking the board on principles that really have no place in our schools. Very evangelical, biblical, cherry-picked principles.
Mhm.
And so we started Safe Schools for All Students as a way to show the board that there were a lot of people who supported using research-based best practices in our schools.
Mhm.
The next school board meeting, we had about 260 community members from our actual community,
Teachers.
students, teachers, administrators,
School board.
school administrative from the school board offices, all there to support that what our students have the right to do,
Mhm.
as opposed to taking rights away. And I just want to show your audience, this is a 71-page document that was written in conjunction with our school psychologist offices, 71 pages. This is all data driven. It was worked on with Equality Florida, with Human Rights Watch. This is an amazing document. This is the document that the school board voted to use after the wonderful evangelical Christians decided to try to take all of those rights away from a student. We ended up with a one-page document. So this is the best practices right now that Pasco County is going by.
Okay.
The biggest issue is allowing bathroom use for transgender students.
Mhm.
And what it boils down to between the two candidates is that Dave LaRoche wants to take that away.
Mhm.
And right now, in the 11th Circuit Court, Southeast Court, which covers Alabama, Georgia, and Florida, the ruling is that transgender students use the bathroom of their gender identity.
Mhm.
So Pasco County would actually be in defiance of law if Dr. LaRoche has his way.
Okay. What has been the stance of the current superintendent?
He defends the one page. I think in his heart, my gut is, having attended the school board meetings for the last couple of months, is that I think he would like to go to this 71-page document, but there was just pushback in the community, and there was pushback of how to get everybody on board with 71 pages. So the one-page simpler form makes it easier for trainings and just putting it out there for everybody to know what's happening. He has strongly supported this one-page document. I know in an op-ed piece that I put out online, I mentioned that on July 30th, Dr. LaRoche posted in his community stump speech, I guess is the best way to put it, that he didn't believe anybody was pushing this, and that Kurt Browning was going to he was going to try to push something through that wasn't being supported. And I've been at school board meetings where Browning has specifically said, this is the best way to do things, simply because this case that Myndee was just talking about in St. Johns County, and then that went on to the 11th court, hadn't been decided yet. And we would be opening ourselves to huge litigation, which the school board doesn't have the money to fight that battle.
Mhm.
So I think now that that court decision has been made, I think the community, the county is going to get together and say, okay, so now what's the next step? How do we close this in and make it not just a procedure policy, but an actual document that we all live by?
And let's be honest, I don't mind saying I'm 48 years old. Never have I gone into a bathroom and seen anyone else's genitals.
Mhm.
So it doesn't matter. You go in, you do your business. It's your business. You come back out. So arguing that students have to go through some, have to go to the nurse's bathroom in the clinic, or they have to be somehow policed, it's absurd. So, looking right now at our choice between Kurt Browning and Dave LaRoche, it's very clear that Dave LaRoche is not interested in supporting all students in Pasco County. He's interested in supporting straight, Christian, students, and that's just that's not all of us, and it's not fair. Going beyond that, if we allow people, especially people from outside of our community, to start dictating what is happening in a school, it's a very slippery slope. When we take the rights away from one student, then we start going down that hill of taking rights away from anyone else who we disagree with.
And in this on the 30th, LaRoche specifically talks about students choosing this lifestyle, and there are lots of just sort of dog whistle terms that he uses to know that he is not supportive of this specific group of people or this community of people that are in our schools. His other main topic that he talks about in this discussion is the bathroom policy, where his big agenda was, okay, let's retrofit every bathroom to single-use stalls.
Uh-oh. I wonder, I think it's froze. Is it my end or theirs? What do you think? Yeah. Okay. All right, hold on. How can I check on my end though? Yeah, I lost. That was me. Look. Why? I don't know. I just don't understand why is this happening. It don't feel like it. It don't. It honestly don't. Okay, so what do you see on your end? What is it doing? Spinning. All right. Let me look at this. Let me go back. Yeah. Yep, it's spinning on my end too. Darn, come on. This is craziness. I don't understand why this is doing this. What is it that's happening that's making this happen? I don't understand why it's just like continuing to do this. You sure? Where this is it? No, it say no internet access. Where is that thing that always pop up? This is craziness. Kenny, I bet you it's that thing that always pop up. It's totally kicked me out. It has totally kicked me out. Do you know that thing I always have to say? I don't know how to make sure it's gone. Yeah. Now it done closed out my thing. This is crazy.
Take those in the order that I recall them. As far as computers, I'm going off of what they did last year, just after spring break. They made ample arrangements to get computers or devices in every kid's hands. Now, that does not mean that every kid got a tablet or a computer. They got one or the other. And in some cases, because we have families that are at multiple levels, we split because the numbers of devices we have at schools, where some families had one or two devices to spread between 2 or 3 students. So that there is some weakness there. Not every kid got a computer, but every family had access to one.
And it's my understanding that Spectrum is still has extended free Wi-Fi to any family that needs it. So we still have that happening.
As far as your other question or your other point about what should we expect on the 24th, you hear words like normalcy and back to a routine, and my understanding, my personal belief and what I've seen so far is that's the furthest thing from the truth. You are in a typical high school where I teach, where I would have in my normal English class 30 to 35 kids in the room. They're not going to be able to keep those numbers. And if they do, there's no way that you can socially distance them where that cough, that sneeze, those issues wouldn't possibly contaminate or affect another human being. The pressure as a student and as a teacher to get into a classroom, to get the room ready for that learning thing that's about to happen in the next 50 minutes or 60 minutes, depending on class, you have 5 to 10 minutes of time that's going to be downtime waiting for whatever chemicals that we're allowed to use to clean the surfaces, letting that stuff dry. You're going to have teachers who are going to be flipping between being virtual and in person. And some teachers, they're going to be asked to do both simultaneously.
And keep in mind, the schools are not providing those cleaning supplies. They don't have the money. So teachers are desperate.
Oh.
Teachers are absolutely desperate for cleaning supplies. There are Amazon lists on Facebook all over the place. Teachers just begging for anybody who can find Lysol spray or Clorox wipes of any kind to send them, because the schools have already said you have to clean. We don't know what you're going to clean with. There's also a waiver for students to wear masks.
And the other thing about that is that you have those OSHA, and I may not be saying the right OSHA requirements, that some of the chemicals that people are going to be donating, or I as a teacher will be able to find and get my hands on, are not going to be allowed in the room to be sprayed because of allergies or chemical combinations. So Myndee said a few minutes ago at the very beginning of this talk that we've had since March to make these things planned. And my feeling is that the superintendent currently, Kurt Browning, and the school board, they didn't plan for the worst. And again, this is not my job to do the planning, but it seems to me that you plan for the worst and then you're easily able to back down those requirements, as opposed to starting with very limited or easygoing limits and then try to slam on more restrictions and rules. So I really think we're doing things backwards. And the last comment I would make about the first day of school, you hear on social media, you hear on the internet that we as teachers are lazy and we don't want to go back. And I want to put that to rest. But one of the things I'd like to say is that as a teacher, I know going in on the day one, I'm concerned about what's happening with my students. I'm concerned about what's happening with this virus. They're not getting the best me. And I would say a majority of teachers feel that way. The bonding that we love to do with our kids, that gentle pat on the shoulder, or in the elementary schools, those hugs that those kids are getting from teachers, or you can watch the viral videos of teachers standing at the doorway with a high five or the funky dance that they do with the kids. Those things are going to be gone. And that frustrates us as teachers probably more than anything else. And at no point were we brought in as teachers to discuss what issues we have at our school sites that would have made the transition back into school, or doing a combination, or whatever it was going to be come on August 24th. What we saw as problems.
Are you guys joining USC? Are you joining USCP in their lawsuit?
I remember since I entered the district 13 years ago, and prior to that, I was a member of the Hillsborough County Teachers Union. So yes.
James and Myndee, can you let everyone know how they can follow you or support you, or even within the elections? What are some last comments that you can give before we move on to the next segment?
Well, if you look on Facebook, you can find a site called Adopt a Pasco Teacher. That's how you can go on if you want to help out with classroom supplies, gloves, masks, cleaning supplies, So Adopt a Pasco Teacher. And also Safe Schools for All Students Pasco on Facebook, to follow all of the things that are happening as far as our LGBTQ students.
Okay, perfect. Thank you so much for bringing this to
Thank you.
Pasco Connect. There are a lot of parents out here that don't know what to do, and are very terrified. I know we're hearing about the schools that have already started and the cases that are already popping up, the quarantines that are already happening. So, of course, it just seems inevitable that in Florida,
Yes.
where the cases have been so high, that this is probably what we're going to run into. And it doesn't seem like there's much alternatives that are being put out there, for parents to consider. So,
Correct.
having this conversation is very important. We're definitely going to continue this. We have so much to unpack within this whole entire situation. So, this will definitely not be the last. This is the first, and I want to thank you for allowing, me the opportunity to talk with you all about this. And we'll definitely continue on this conversation. So, you guys go out and vote
Yes.
for
Please.
these elections that's coming up this Tuesday on the 18th. If you need more information, you can go to pascovotes.com, and I think they have all of the information that you can ever need, answer all of your questions, where to go, candidate information and things like that.